welcome to the Miss Juneteenth pageant.
The winner of Miss Juneteenth will receive a full scholarship to any historically Black institution of your choice.
Good luck. I know that you are looking to replicate your success. What's her problem?
I beat her.
My name's Nicole Beharie. I run a platform called the British Blacklist. It's a platform that celebrates British Black creatives in the arts across screen, stage and literature. And I'm doing this on behalf of We Are Parable, a film exhibition company in the UK that just celebrates and exhibits Black film. So hello and welcome.
Hey.
Please could you introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm Channing Godfrey Peoples. I'm the writer-director of Miss Juneteenth.
I'm Nicole Beharie. I play Turquoise Jones, one of the main characters.
Nicole, can you please tell me what Turquoise's goal is in Miss Juneteenth?
Yes. Jumping in that?
Yes, we're jumping in like that.
Oh man, like many parents, her goal is to provide a better life for her daughter, you know, to sort of embed into her a future and possibility. She sees all this potential and she's just figuring out every possible way to make it happen, you know.
You get the script, you see Turquoise, I mean, a phenomenal name. You see Turquoise on the page. What jumped out at you about her that kind of resonated and said that, yeah, this is the woman I want to portray?
I just love the script. You know, this is Channing's baby, right? And Turquoise is sort of in like every woman. I feel like an amalgamation of like a bunch of different people that we may know that, you know, are willing to go fight tooth and nail, but also be extremely compassionate and loving, perhaps even to a fault. And I love that I saw my sister. I saw aspects of my aunts and my mother and myself, you know, and then, you know, upon actually getting down to Texas and working, I realized that it was more specific than I had even, known or intended. I was sort of like, oh, I kind of know this. I know this from these different people. But Channing's vision was even more specific to, you know, Fort Worth and that community in a way that I think audiences are really, absorbing and really feeling and understanding that, like, wow, we're not like a monolith. There's a lot of different variety in our communities. And so I really liked that. Once I even learned more.
Thank you. And Channing, what was it, why and what was it about Turquoise, Ronnie and Kai that you wanted to bring to life on screen? Why them in this particular journey?
Nicole has said it so eloquently. You know, Turquoise in particular, you know, I'd love to hear that Nicole has said, you know, it felt like her family, you know, because there's so much of myself and Turquoise, so much of my mother, grandmother, you know, my aunts, women in the community, you know, who had such a sense of determination and really grit. But, you know, the thing that I was always so astonished by was they always carried themselves with grace, you know, and we saw that absolutely in Nicole's performance of Turquoise. And, you know, it was just important to me to be able to see everyday folks who I feel like are my heroes and my inspiration on screen. And in particular, you know, I grew up in this community, so inspired my work because, you know, I grew up a part of this really close-knit Black community, which, you know, they had these lives, which I felt like were, you know, colorful lives that were lived in, but they lived, you know, out loud. And, you know, even as hard as they worked, they were celebrating themselves. So they just inspired me, and it just made me want to start on this journey. And I think if I had any fear about anything, it was being able to do the community proud.
When I watched it, I felt like Miss Juneteenth represented aspiration, goals, achievement. But what did the actual pageant mean to you specifically as a young girl growing up?
I know now, you know, how radical it was for me to have that pageant because, you know, and I've said this in other interviews, but it was really my version of Miss America. You know, I had a real world example of young Black women on stage in all their different like skin tones and hair textures, you know, but what they had was, you know, that looked like me in a sense. And what they had in common was I got to see these young Black women with like hope on their face, like hope for the future, you know, their hopefulness. And I feel like now when I look back at it, you know, as a young Black girl in Fort Worth, Texas, which is, you know, a conservative place, it gave me a sense of excitement and hope. And I realized how radical that was and what a gift that was, you know, and I think it's something that just stayed with me. And here we are with Miss Juneteenth.
I kind of hated the finishing school element of it, because the finishing school elevated it to something that wasn't just any old beauty show, local beauty show. However, there was that element of judgment and visions of or perceptions of what success is. What did you know about Miss Juneteenth, Nicole, yourself? Was it because you didn't grow up in that area, but did you have an awareness of what the Miss Juneteenth pageant or anything similar to when you were growing up?
No, I hadn't. I didn't have that. I didn't have that privilege in a way. My only exposure to pageants were like Channing said, all the big Miss America produced by Donald Trump. You know, women that are, you know, not really in their voices, or it's all about being slender and having a very Western ideal of beauty. And so I actually was relieved, because initially when I read, I was like, oh, it's about a pageant? I don't really see. But the way that she described it, and then once we got there, and the casting and the way that the young ladies were dressed and the way that their hair was done, I was like, oh, this is a celebration of how we are, like all the different ways that we can be. So it wasn't what I was thinking a pageant was, or what I was exposed to in my youth.
I did start by saying about the judgment versus the refinement of young women. So maybe, I don't know, for both of you as women in this industry, coming to it from whatever your background was, and having your perceptions of success, how did the metaphors of the film, does anything relate to how your navigation through the industry as Black women?
You know, a lot of things in Black and brown culture is aspirational and assimilation, right? So there's going to be aspects of that when there's like a narrow pathway to success. And so, you know, you see Turquoise's vision is extremely, you know, she's hell-bent, it's going to be one way. No way, you know? And a lot of us have that only because we've seen that it's worked for other people, and don't necessarily have a lot of other examples, right? So, you know, that kind of pressure also happens as a performer, and probably in other industries as well. It's like, we're just starting to see more freedom with our hair textures, with makeup, with all these different things that I know, like I own 6 wigs, like lace front joints, you know, but underneath my hair has always been natural. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like really interesting that like, that's always going to be sort of a part of it until it's not. And I think people like Channing and, you know, other people that are coming out and creating work that celebrates, you know, who we are, push that needle a little bit more each time, so that the conversation isn't this question, and it's just, wow, y'all look beautiful.
Kind of like, as Turquoise felt, escapism is winning this pageant, or, you know, did you ever feel that in regards to you and your career wanting to be a filmmaker even?
Definitely. It took a long time to get this film out into the world. You know, I was uniquely aware that I was making a film, you know, not only about a Black woman, but a Black woman navigating her own dreams, and, you know, those dreams being rerouted and ultimately finding something that's for herself. And, you know, I know that there's just not a lot of material like that out in the world, you know, especially not a film that's navigating the interior lives of Black women. And, you know, that's the kind of material that I wanted to make. And, you know, we have, you know, brilliant actors like a Nicole Beharie, you know, who are deserving of these, you know, complex roles, you know, these multi-layered roles that, you know, show their talent in so many ways, you know, and those are the kind of things that I want to be doing. But I mean, it's just like Nicole says, you know, there's things that come with, you know, this idea of what success is, and, you know, what it means for us as artists, you know, and especially as Black artists in the world, and being able to like put our original material in the world and being authentic to ourselves and our culture, you know. So, you know, it's just important, I think, for me as an artist to be able to do that. But yeah, there is a sense of like, what is success and what's aspirational, you know, and what road you'll take to get there.
I don't know how much we can give away, but like one of the things I really love about the movie jumping off of what Channing said, or at least the story is like seeing the interior lives of a Black woman, but also like generations, like the daughter and then the grandmother and like all these other people in the community. You really get a sense of like where they're going with it. And although there's like a kind of prescribed aspirational way of doing it, you know, Turquoise comes into her own, but so does Kai, so does the daughter, in like a different way, which is funny because of the timing. It feels reflective of Gen X, like just taking the world and being like, hey, y'all are sitting over there, you don't get it, but we're gonna like protest and we're gonna push that needle forward again. And I just love that, you know, she wrote this, you know, a few years ago, and then we shot it like a year ago, and it lands in the zeitgeist of a reality of, you know, like parallels in so many ways. So girl, sister,
yeah. I mean,
like
you're jumping into one of my questions, but I'm going to come back to that one in a second. Because testament to your acting, Nicole, I believed you and I related because I have a 20-year-old daughter. So there are, this is not cracking, that's all.
Yeah, like
I was about to say, I thought you were about 25.
Oh, I love you. I think, no.
Crazy.
I'm in my 40s and it's just, trying to hang on to it. Anyway, but that dynamic was so believable. My baby girl's a good girl, but she's that Gen X kind of, I'm fighting for it. So I saw that, and being a single mother, that what hit me and got me a little bit like, oh, was the Turquoise is by any means necessary. Her persistence in smiling whilst her wounds are wide open, and especially for her daughter's benefit, because that's what we do as mothers anyway. But we're smiling, and it was just that even when her daughter's pushing against her, and it's like, I'm trying to do my best for you. You don't get it, but I am. I just saw that resilience, and I just recognized it and identified, and I'm sure many women identified with it. So what did Turquoise teach you or reinforce you about being a woman, Blackness, motherhood, in dealing with a situation? Sorry, Hannah.
Do we have enough time for that? I don't know. I don't think we have enough time for that. I just like, wow. I mean, even when things aren't working out in your favor and you have little scruples, like to make the larger vision bigger than yourself and to still commit to whatever the future is or what the thing is, you know what I mean? Especially now, like, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but we're like in this culture where a lot of things daily can upend your movement or your mood or your focus. It's like staying and like sticking with purpose, you know, and knowing that it can be a rocky road, but like, I'm here to do my thing, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna still give it 100%, like no matter what obstacles are in the way. And I feel like that's what all these mothers may be relating to. And then also, I had the gift of Alexis Chikaeze. It's her first movie, her first time, and she just came in and killed it. And she was so open and, you know, also didn't really know how to navigate these things. And I remember that experience myself. Like, where do I look when the person's not there? And then I gotta do it to the camera and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of have this maternal instinct just as a creative to another creative. And I think that is some of what you're feeling too, is being like, okay, welcome to the tribe. Like, and I would like for this to like be good for you, you know? So, yeah.
Which character were you channeling as you created this world, if any?
Oh my gosh, now I have to tell my business. I really wrote Turquoise early on from the perspective of, you know, having watched my mother. You know, my mother was single for much of my life. And at one point, you know, she's like, my mother's the one who introduced me to the arts, you know, taking me to community theater and things like that. But I just watched her, you know, navigate like raising children and, you know, navigate her own dreams and reconciling her own dreams and, you know, what she wanted for the world. So I really wrote it from that perspective. It was always in, you know, from Turquoise's point of view, but I was writing it as a daughter watching a mother. And then right around that time, I found out that we were going to get financing. I found out, of course, I was pregnant. And then, you know, art imitating life, I would have a daughter. And so when I had my daughter, there were two things that happened. I was immediately terrified because I was like, oh my gosh, you know, there's this human being on the human being on the planet that I have to, you know, figure out how to provide the best life for, you know, whatever that looked like. And then there was also this sense of joy at the same time, and this intimacy with another human being that I could not explain, you know, and it completely changed the way that I saw Turquoise. But one of the things that I knew that I had to find a way to bring to the story was Turquoise's bond with her daughter and her sense of joy.
It really came through.
And that's actually something that, like, I have to give you a hats off for, because I feel like there was tough love, because a lot of times we do see stories where parents are caretaking or trying to take, you know, direct their children, but it feels heavy-handed and aggressive. And this was like done in a way that I don't think we've seen depicted before. There's like a lot of compassion and actually like listening to her daughter, you know?
Yes. And I think that's difficult when you come from a couple generations before. I came up in a generation of children were seen but not heard.
Absolutely.
We didn't have an opinion. We were told, right? So having to adapt to listening has been quite interesting.
I felt like that hit a nerve with you. You paused for a second on that one. I was like, okay, that hit a nerve.
I mean, there's some moments, like, I don't know if you know, I'm giving away stuff, but I don't know if you remember the moment where Turquoise confronts her daughter in the bedroom. You know?
Yes.
And I won't give away too much, but like, you know, in real time when Nicole is performing that, I think all of us jumped in the room. Like when she had that conversation, we were like, wow. And I was like, yep. Okay, we can move on. We got it.
Wow.
Yeah. Channing, you couldn't have predicted what COVID, lockdown, all the stuff that's happening, Black Lives Matter, would do. But then, as you guys talked about, Miss Juneteenth drops at a time when we need our stories visualized. Black historical events and traditions need to be shared so we can gain power in knowing ourselves. Has the film taken on a different meaning since all of this has happened?
It's interesting because Nicole touched on something earlier. I think, you know, how we had made this film and then all of a sudden the film becomes really relevant. You know, I was pitching the film with my creative partner, who happens to be my husband, and we would literally go in together because one of us would have to explain, okay, what Juneteenth was, you know, and then we could go into what the story was. Then we could focus on the story, you know, the characters and Turquoise's journey. All of a sudden, you know, the film is coming out at a time where, you know, Juneteenth is relevant all of a sudden. But I just feel like for us, it was bittersweet. You know, we were putting the film out during a pandemic, you know, in a time where we were fighting to get the film into the world. And then we're again navigating, you know, another national tragedy, which comes, you know, after a series of national tragedies. So these are like conversations that we've been having in the Black community forever. But all of a sudden, you know, the nation is like, or most of the nation is open, or some of the nation is open to hearing these conversations, you know? And so for me, what I was constantly weighing was that, you know, we were another story that was going out into the world that was, you know, having this conversation, but there have been people on the ground, you know, like the community activists and, you know, people who were making real and lasting change, you know, that really wanted to be heard. So I just hope it's another part of the conversation in which a Black story is being told and, you know, people are willing to listen. And I hope more stories come after this. So
how does it feel now that the film's come out? Has it taken on a different meaning for you?
It is kind of interesting when things align in that way. I'm sure, Channing, you probably have moments where you're like, well, I'm doing this, but I know I got to do this now, and the time, you know, and you don't know why. And then it's like, that's why. You know what I mean? Like, you know, people were at home and people probably needed something warm and hopeful also to see, because like you said, it's national tragedy after tragedy. And then also the first commemoration of the holiday on a national scale that I know of, you know, in like my lifetime, it was good to like be in the sort of zeitgeist, in the flow of that stream in a way. Yeah, I too hope that it means that there will be more material, and that also people will trust when they get that visceral, you know, intuitive, I need to do this. I need to, no matter who says what, I'm gonna go and do it, and I'm gonna stick to it no matter what happens. That like it's for a reason, you know, and we keep doing what we gotta do.
Initially, we were going to be speaking to Kendrick as well, but so his character Ronnie, he does fall into the kind of no good black man category, and I was kind of rolling my eyes at him. I was rolling my eyes at him. I was. There were moments when I was like, I see this guy. I think in this current climate, especially on the backdrop of what's happening, there are more black men pushing against being seen as maybe not pulling their weight or not being able to step up to the plate. So I don't mean as in he wasn't a terrible man, but as a woman, yeah, there was some flaws and traits. I was like, yeah, I've seen this, and how I have been susceptible to those flaws and traits and things like that. So how did you shape him? Because Turquoise also was empathetic to him to a point, and tried to be accommodating to a point until she realized that what she needed to do for herself and her daughter. So I guess it's just approaching a male character in a project like this.
Really with all the characters, like I never really approach things in black and white. Like I'm all to the shades of gray, you know? And I think for Ronnie and Turquoise both, like I was constantly, you know, assessing in the writing, like how did these people parent? And thematically, Juneteenth is about people, the enslaved people in Texas getting freedom. You know, they got it 2.5 years after everyone else. So thematically, I was applying that to the film, like, you know, especially in Turquoise's journey, what does it mean that Turquoise got her freedom, you know, later in life, you know? And so I was saying, like, what does freedom mean for each of these characters? And so for Ronnie, you know, once they see the film, they'll see what freedom means for Ronnie. And, you know, also looking at like, how does Ronnie parent and how does Turquoise parent? And I feel like, you know, their parenting is in opposition a lot of times, but what you can see that they have in common is, you know, the love for their daughter, you know, and that opposition, you may make it come out, you know, in different ways, and it may make Ronnie look like he's in the wrong in some ways, but, you know, hopefully people will get kind of the nuance of his story. And I think Kendrick's performance of that character contributes to that nuance.
I just want to, you know, piggyback on Gray. That's actually, I think that goes to the other question that you asked me earlier about what I learned in this piece a little bit, is that, you know, I like playing in the gray, and I like that she created a world where the characters are in the gray. Turquoise is just as flawed as Ronnie is, you know, in many ways. And then they both have aspects, and some of their decisions can be questionable depending on who you talk to. You know, there are tropes that you know show up in different ways in all of the material that we watch, you know what I mean? But I definitely feel like this is a piece and sort of like a masterclass that, you know, Channing created in subtlety and like the nuances. So on the surface, you might be like, oh, he's a this, but it was a lot more going on than I think just that.
But I think that's what it is, because the character's so empathetic, I think I see who I relate to. And so I'm looking at Ronnie through those eyes. So I'm being biased. I admit, I'm being biased. I hear that. But I did see the nuances, but it was the immediate, I've seen you before with your eyes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
I get that. Like,
with your eyes. He does have some special eyes.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know,
sorry, Shannon.
Inspired by a lot of like the kitchen table stories where I saw my mom and, you know, aunts and stuff sit around the table and, you know, talk about like navigating love and life. But yeah, I mean, it's just as Nicole is saying, like it's just really important to me for people to like see these characters as humanly as possible, you know, and that's what we were definitely, you know, approaching it at, for me, from a writing and directing perspective. And then, you know, I had these really fantastic actors who were in there like lifting these roles up off the page and adding just so much nuance to it. So I got really lucky there.
It was an honor. It was an honor. And like working with Kendrick is so good. And again, like in the alignment and the zeitgeist, like the movie comes out, Kendrick's in the road every day protesting and working. It was like he doesn't stop working. You know?
and that was a beautiful contrast. So that was a beautiful contrast as well. If we're watching the film and knowing in quotes the man who's out there protesting, it was a wonderful synergy, and that does break down some of those stereotypical tropes that we hold on to and should need to release and start fresh again with. So just to wrap up, look, so Channing, this feature film written and directed by Black women, starring Black women in the lead, you know, and on the recent information news that Regina King becomes the first African-American woman director who's got a project to be selected at Venice Film Festival. I mean, you know, it would be Regina because it's Regina, of course, but I'm also tired of there being firsts. In 2020, there's still Black firsts. And as much as I'm celebrating, it's like still all these firsts. So I guess for both of you, what does the screen industry look like? Without all this firsts and breaking ground, what does it look like to you? That is the lay of the land, that utopia where we're not talking about glass ceilings, Oscars so white, all this type of stuff.
Hopefully there's like more inclusivity across the board. I you know, the pessimistic me is like, it's about money for a lot of people. So we got to make money, make it, you know, work. But we've seen that a lot of things, for example, like Black Panther or something, where people have been saying for eons that, you know, we can't do that. It's been done. So maybe there will be more access and fewer firsts, but let's keep the first coming. I'd rather have first than none.
I'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see more doors opening. You know, of course, the utopia is equity. You know, of course, we want to be able to do a story like this about the interior life of a Black woman and be able to recognize that that's as valid as, you know, some huge, gigantic blockbuster, you know, and people support it as such. So I'm happy to see these doors opening. I'm happy to see opportunity, but of course the utopia is equity, and you know, we'll see if we get there. I'm like Nicole, I'm cautiously optimistic, and like people were asking me around the time the film released, you know, what do you hope happens from this moment? I was like, I hope we aren't just listening to these conversations in this moment, and I hope we continue listening. So we'll see.
And can you both just share the most memorable moment or moments of filming Miss Juneteenth?
Oh my gosh. The whole thing is a gift, really. I don't think I have any like specific moment because there's so many. It's just such a miracle now that it got made. Like I even think about independent film and how, you know, literally it took so long to get the film done. And every year was like, we'll do the film this year, you know, and something would happen where it didn't happen that year, or the film would get pushed forward through like development programs and things like that. And it was like, we'll do the film next year. And, you know, I had such a young child at the time, and I was even like, oh, you know, maybe it'll be the next year. And if it had been the next year, you know, we would have been in the middle of this, you know, and the film wouldn't have been made. So, you know, it's really a gift that it's here. And even the way that it was, you know, released in this bittersweet way, you know, when we're navigating these national tragedies, you know, there's just so many moments. I'm sorry, I don't have one.
I was curious. I was like, how could she come up with one moment? She made this whole thing come to life. Like that would be so interesting. Just seeing the youth come into their own. There's a moment with her hair, and I just feel like it's such a beautiful scene. And there are some moments that we all get to have as actors, but also, as you said, like relating to the characters in a way. I feel like people that watch, you know, when things are done from the heart, they relate to whomever it is. And I hope that young ladies and men or whomever can sort of embody that moment when they see it and like find their own little freedom moments for themselves. It's a really powerful moment that you've given people, Channing, right there. I love that. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, sorry.
I think I
try not to like tell you, but not give it away.
I think I know which one you're talking about, and I agree. So yeah.
Yeah.
It was wonderful speaking to you, and I really love the film, and I appreciate the film, and I appreciate your performance. And Channing, I will be hoping to see more from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.